As soon as I see mom's a doctor, dad's a doctor, I go, red flag. Ask the Dean episode. I have no idea because it's cut off on my screen. Hello, everyone. I'm excited to be here. Excited to be live on our public channels. Usually this series is reserved for our mapped members in our private Facebook group. But every first of the month, first Monday of the month, we are live to our public channels as well. I'm joined by Dr. Scott Wright, former Director of Admissions at UT Southwestern, retired Executive Director of TMDSAS, the application service that trumps all application services, and is opening here really soon.
Yeah,
we are in application season. Welcome, everyone, to the most stressful time of the year.
Yes.
The Christmas songs is like, it's the most wonderful time, right? Application season, worst, right? It's the opposite of that. So, Rachel Grubbs, co-founder of Mapped. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm fabulous. I'm glad to be here. It's I can tell by the amount of times I've been tagged in Facebook that the stress levels are high, and that's okay. I'm here to help.
You are here to help, and I love the widescreen look. When you go full screen, you can see the mapped artwork in the background there. Look at that. There we go.
Woohoo!
Before we jump in and start answering tons of questions, I want to take just a moment to show you Mapped. If you haven't checked out Mapped yet, and it's not called MapD, it's not called MD app, it's called Mapped without an E. I want you to check out Mapped. I want to show you Mapped because today is actually the last day that we are in beta. We'll still have beta features moving forward, but the application, our application as a whole, Mapped application, will be out of beta tomorrow, which means our beta pricing is going away and it's increasing by $1 a month, or $10 for the year. So I'm going to share with you my screen real quick and show you what Mapped looks like. Now, this is our dashboard after you enter in a bunch of information. I was on a webinar last night. People are like, how do you calculate your GPA? Well, Mapped makes it really easy. And you get some cool graphs, right? This is a great graph of someone who really struggled and then had a bunch of great upward trend. You can see all the different application services because they do calculate them a little bit differently. If you click on more details, we have some different graphs that shows you just the same information in different ways to help you see where you're going. This is one of our favorite graphs, this class standing GPA graph, because this shows you, right, the power of an upward trend. You start off not so great, and then you improve. And that 3.23 doesn't look super solid, but when you actually see the story behind those numbers, it tells a much better story. One of our newest features is our roadmap, where based on my start date for medical school, which is 2023 here in the profile, or 2022 rather, if I change it to 2023, I can then show you the roadmap updates automatically. And the first few boxes are general kind of big time chunks. And then we start getting into smaller and smaller time chunks for when you should take the MCAT, when you should start getting your letters of recs and researching schools and working on your personal statement. And my primary applications, all the way down to your white coat. One of the best things is we have over 4 million data points of courses here in our database. And this new thing you can see is this specific feature is in beta. And what this is when you enter let's say a physics course, you search for physics, and let's find physical chemistry laboratory. Let's try that. It's going to match chemistry because chemistry is the last word. I figured that out the other day, Rachel. If it has a couple different keywords, although physics wasn't in there, chemistry was. If it said physics and chemistry, I think it matches that last word. But anyway, you can see it automatically checked, fulfills prereq for chemistry, and it automatically checked the science boxes there for all 3 application services. If I did calculus, you'll see here it would mark math for prereq. It still auto selects science for Texas and the MD AMCAS application, but unchecked the DO application because math does not count as a science. And so hopefully a better way, easier way for students to track all of their stuff. You can track all of your activities in here, can keep journal entries so you know when it comes time to applying, you remember what you did 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Mapped is a tool that you should be using as soon as you know you want to be a doctor, as soon as you are a pre-med. You can track all of your MCAT exams, practice, and full length. So if it's a practice test, we have all the practice tests in there. We actually need to add the new one now that Med School Coach has a practice exam as well. And then one of the best features, which is still currently being tweaked, we had a big update a couple weeks ago and one update coming out tomorrow that is going to make this easier for us, where we can push you feedback based on the data that you give us. So you can see these first couple ones are just some information pushes about National Premed Day, which is coming up, West Coast Health Professions Conference. But then we can also give you specific feedback based on the data that you give us. And there's no examples here other than the shadowing one that says, hey, you have 50 hours of shadowing. Congrats, here's some information. But we can give you feedback that says, hey, your GPA, your first 20 credit hours of your GPA isn't on the trajectory it needs to be on. Here's some advice, some feedback for you. You can invite your advisor. If you have an advisor at your school, you can invite them. You can invite your mentor, someone, so they can look at your data in a read-only matter and give you some feedback as well. Keep track of your contacts, your letters of rec writers. Work on your applications. So we have this fancy kind of application simulator now showing you what each of the different application services is looking for. And then you can work on your essays inside of Maps. So you can see the AMCAS application has lots of potential applications that may require you to write something. You come in here and you can write your essays as much as you want. And you can build your school list. So this is just the beginning. We have a lot more coming to Mapped, but this is what I wanted to show you. Again, it's $6.99 right now. If you go to mapped.com, you can log in, try it for free, and it's a free 14-day trial, and you get it for $6.99 a month right now. That's all I got.
Nice. Thank you for that thorough tour. All right. Well, we have got a lot of questions in the comments, so let's jump in with what is on the pre-med consciousness.
Hi, my spring transcript last class of postbac isn't being released until mid-May. Can I send in my transcript without the last class, or should I wait? Wait. Yep. Wait, that's easy. Won't hurt you. What are your thoughts on applying to 40-plus medical schools? Will it increase my chances of getting in and getting a better scholarship? So the chances of getting a scholarship at all
nothing today. Yeah,
is slim to none. It has nothing to do with the number of schools that you apply to. It's all based on who you are. So I don't know the answer to this. Someone tried to say that mathematical statistics is you multiply the probability of each thing happening if they're independent things, and that gives you your chances of getting into medical school. So technically, the more schools you apply to, the better your chances. And I just call hogwash on that, right?
I agree.
Each school that you apply to is an independent thing that has nothing to do with any other school. So, yeah. Anyway,
I agree.
On and on.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't know that there's any correlation between the number of schools you apply to, because some people apply to one school and they get in, or 3 schools and they get in, or whatever. And so, so I don't think that has anything to do with it.
Yeah. I mean, there's no harm. It's time and money. Those are the two things that are the biggest pain for applying to a lot of schools. Time to do secondaries and lots of money.
Yep.
Yeah. All right.
Do you think undergrad university plays a large role in admissions? Does coming from a less prestigious state school hurt my chances when I'm in the same pool of applicants from prestigious schools? This is the common, is the grass greener on the other side? Because I
Right.
didn't go to Harvard and I went to UMass. Is that going to hurt me?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think medical schools try to evaluate where a student's coming from, not only the school, but also the major, the courses within the major that they've taken. All of those have an impact on the rigor of their curriculum. But all in all, I don't think that medical schools look at different schools, at undergraduate schools in a way that's going to affect how they are going to evaluate them necessarily. So, for example, when I was at UT Southwestern Med School, we had a class of just over 200, and sometimes we had up to 75 or even 85 different undergraduate institutions amongst those 200 students. So we had kids coming from very well-known high-end institutions, Ivy League stuff. We had students coming from regional state universities. We had students coming from tiny little liberal arts colleges. You name it, they were coming from those schools and they got in. So
who you are, not the name on your diploma.
That's correct.
Yeah. Very, very minimal impact, if at all.
Yep.
All right.
Should I state my sex/gender identity or sexual orientation/ethnicity on AMCAS? What about parental income? How would a decline to state be viewed? Interesting question. So I see this sometimes during my application renovations of students who decline to answer the question. I don't know if, Scott, does TMDSAS let you decline to answer those questions?
Yes.
Yeah. And what is the impact of declining to state?
I don't think there's much of an impact in declining. I just think that, some students want to just not declare for whatever reason they don't want to declare. And so I don't think it negatively impacts an application, nor does it positively. I think it's a no. Yeah. So flat.
My general understanding of those questions, and you can correct me if I'm wrong for TMDSAS, but my general kind of assumption of those questions is that they are more research based. They're just to go into a database so somebody can have some data points later on if they want to research that kind of
stuff. And there are certain state and federal reporting requirements on ethnicity and gender and certain things that we do have, that the state schools especially have to report on to the state. So it affects those, but that's aggregate stuff. And so so I don't think it would be viewed poorly if this student declined to answer those questions.
Kansas my pie. What a great username.
Yep.
All right. I don't know if Kansas is a verb there. Like, I don't know what you're doing to your pie if you can't.
I know, right?
Joe V says, how much do ADCOMS, in your experience, take into account the timeline of ECs with GPA trends? For example, I officially quit a full-time job in 2017. At the same time, there is a spike in ECs and GPA. Okay, so they quit a job and they did more ECs and their GPA went up. Do you think that ADCOMS are sitting there with like little cutouts of GPA and jobs and ECs and moving them around, going what happened where and cause and effect? And
I do think that sometimes admissions committees will look at an application and they will see, okay, for example, a student that has a 3 maybe let's say a lower than what the student might want to see. Let's say they have a 3.3 GPA, but it becomes clear to the admissions committee that they were working full time or had several part-time jobs, and that there was a lot. They were putting themselves through school and their family income was low, and a very large percentage of their costs were coming from themselves. They were putting themselves through. Or another example is if they were a varsity athlete and a lot of time commitment to that, but it's got good benefits in terms of team building and leadership skills and discipline and stuff like that. So I think ADCOMS will look at those and try to evaluate them within the context of everything else that the student is doing. So, and another good example are the service academies, how, they just got, tons of stuff to do. So
Just a thing or two.
All right.
How to write honors/recognition section on AMCAS if we are grouping many of them together. Is listing okay, or how could we incorporate a story with this section? Well, I have a book, the Premed Playbook Guide to the Medical School Application Process, which talks about how to write these sections.
Mhm.
Show it again. Now that we've got you on solo.
Is that the actual real book?
No, this is the pretend one.
Oh, okay.
My real book has shipped though, so I should potentially have it for next Ask the Dean.
Okay,
good. They're finally printing. Right, we talk about this all the time, Scott. Right? Is the activity section is your ability to show what you've been doing with your time, the kind of impact that you've had on this world, and in each of the activities. And for honors, awards, recognitions, there's really not much impact that you can show there. So a story or something that's just not really necessary. Just in my mind, just list those things. Yes, and he agrees. He's frozen. All right, let's move on.
Okay, he'll come back to us. Let's see.
Yeah.
Who's next? Some of you repeat question askers, I'm giving other people a chance first, okay? So don't be offended.
What is your opinion on people applying who have relatively low clinical experience hours but believe they understand the profession and its pitfalls due to having an MD in the family and shadowing?
Head shake from Dr. Wright.
No, huge head shake.
No, I don't like it. I don't think, number one, I don't think that just because your dad or your mom is a doctor that gives you that it automatically checks the box for you. So I think that what the medical schools are looking for is a commitment, a level of commitment.
Yeah.
It says I'm committed to doing this, and I'm committed to seeing more than just the way that you put it. And this may not be your reason for the question asker. It smacks of sort of checkbox. Well, I checked that box because my dad's a doctor, or I checked that box because my mom's a surgeon, so I don't have to do all that stuff. I think they want to see the commitment on your part. They want to see, they want to see that you're getting clinical experience with patients full time, or with patients in a setting that gives you a sense of how are you working in this environment, not just how. Not just seeing mom or dad doing it.
Yeah, I actually think it's the opposite, where on AMCAS and I'm assuming on TMDSAS and AACOMAS, I forget off the top of my head, where you put like, what is mom's profession? What is dad's profession?
Mm-hmm.
As soon as I see mom's a doctor, dad's a doctor, I go, red flag. I hope this student has done enough of their own research, not research in the technical term of research, but research as in exploring healthcare to see if it's what they want to do, not just what mommy or daddy do, and therefore I want to be a doctor.
That's right.
And mom or dad being a doctor has nothing to do with what clinical experience is about. Clinical experience is, do you like being around patients? Not do you understand what medicine is about? That's more the shadowing.
That's shadowing, right?
So,
yeah. I mean, 100% agree. There's a big difference between, I understand that women release feces in labor, and I was there while it happened, and I made sure she didn't feel ashamed. I mean, I pick an example like that because that's the kind of reality we're talking about. And patients aren't always kind. Patients aren't always grateful. You have to really know how to keep your cool and still love what you're doing when it's really hard. And that's what clinical experience is about, is making sure that you're really in it for all of the good reasons, warts and all,
Yep.
Yeah. OBGYN, one of the only specialties that'll get the ceiling dirty.
Yep. not the only one, but one of them.
One of them.
All right, let's keep on trucking.
I have a bachelor's degree of mechanical engineering from Texas A&M, GPA 3.74, August 2020. Would it be okay to take all MCAT prereqs at community college due to financial problems? Thanks. Great question. They actually gave good context around what is big picture. Big picture, their stats look pretty good. Scott, what do you think?
I think they could get most of the prereqs at community college. Biochemistry is a prereq for some schools, particularly TMDSAS, that community colleges are not going to offer, as it's an upper level course. So you may have to pick biochem up at a 4-year institution, but I don't see a problem with that. I mean, I think if you're clear with your interviewers, for example, and if a question came up and you said, hey, financially, I just had to do it this way. And so, yeah.
By the way, 3.74 in an engineering major. I mean, that's no joke.
Yeah, that's tough.
Good job.
A&M, though. I mean, it's no Florida. It's the only Texas school I can rag on because they're SEC.
Oh, you lost eye contact from Scott. That's how bad this is.
All right, let's go. Move on.
I'm just going to stare out the window from now on.
Oh, wait, it's a TMDSAS. We need you.
I will be applying TMDSAS this cycle. Can I change my letters of rec after I submit my application? I might switch out one of my LORs for my extracurriculars.
Yeah, you can do that. Yep.
So just a clarification. So on all the application services, LORs are something you can change after. Mm-hmm. There's one special thing about AMCAS that I typically talk about, where AMCAS lets you pick and choose which schools get which letters, but TMDSAS, as far as I know, and AACOMAS do not. Everything, every school.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Okay.
That is correct.
How does medical admissions look at hard undergraduate classes like physical chemistry? Isn't that just like Gen Chem? Physical
No, P-Chem is a little different.
P-Chem's, that's upper level chemistry.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the more general question is like, how do they look at your course load and,
do they care?
Well, I mean, I think so for example, if you made a D in physical chemistry, that would be a problem. I mean, you can't just use the excuse, well, it was hard.
It was hard. Yeah.
So,
what do you think med school is going to be?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly the point, is that, med school is going to be 10 times harder than anything you're doing in undergrad. So I think that, you just have to, they will look at that, but I think that they're not going to give a whole lot of wiggle room if you don't do well in the class. Mm-hmm. Or if you fail God forbid you fail the class.
All right. Green soccer.
Is phlebotomy a high quality clinical experience? So the question first is, what is a high quality clinical experience, Scott? In your mind, in AdCom world, what is a high quality clinical experience?
High touch, high patient contact touch.
Yeah.
So, any patient contact job, whether it's a CNA or whether it's some scribes can do elements of that. Better example is a MA, is a medical assistant, pretty high touch. Yeah. So, but phlebotomy, I think can be pretty high touch. I mean, you're dealing directly with the patients, you're sticking them with needles. And so
hopefully just not randomly, but like in their veins.
But one would assume, and it's always been that way with me when I get blood taken or whatever, that they're talking to you, they're trying to be nice and happy and friendly and keep your mind off of what they're actually doing to you and things like that. So sure, I'd say
and really at the end of the day, the biggest thing in my mind that makes it high quality, I think was the term used, is what was the so what behind it, right? That we talk about all the time. How do you talk about it in your activity section to show the impact that it had on you or the impact that you had on it?
Exactly. You got that spot on.
I'm learning from you, Scott. I'm learning. I mean, it's taken me a while.
I'm proud of you.
Reapplicant. Should I ask new people for LORs or my previous writers to update theirs? The old writers knew me very well. 3 out of 5 were most meaningful experienced supervisors and were elated to write me a LOR.
Yeah, I think you can use the same letter writers, just have them update, or you could get, you can mix and match. You have 3 of the same from last year and then 2 new ones, or whatever, mix and match. But don't use old letters. That's the key. Have them update the letter, and then but you can use the same letter, the same writers.
Love it. Rachel asks, I'm a non-trad with post-bac upward trend, but my last course was a B- in physics due to medical issues. Should I convert to a pass for my upward trend to keep my upward trend, or keep the B- and explain it?
I'd probably keep the B-. I think. And explain it, you can explain it in your application or whatever, and or in an interview. And but I don't. I think it might be a bigger red flag if you had a P. Everything else was graded, and then there's this one sole class with a P, and it's like, what's up with that?
Yeah.
And,
the fear that students have, though, is the B- may drop my GPA enough to where they're not even going to be able to ask me why, but a P is going to save my GPA, and then they can ask me why I have a P.
Well, yeah. It's
a tricky situation.
Yeah, that is tricky. I mean, I could go either way on that. I honestly, I think I don't feel strongly about the B-. I think, that's a good point, Ryan, that either way, you're going to have to kind of explain what the situation was. So.
Yeah, we actually have a couple questions around this, so I'll show another one just while we're sort of in the downward trend, one B- I wouldn't call downward trend, but while we're in that topic.
Does a slight downward GPA trend matter if your stats are strong overall? For example, if you have a 3.7 plus science GPA, is a recent semester under 3.5 concerning?
I would say no. I wouldn't worry about it.
Nope. Yeah, when we say downward, upward trends, like that's for low GPAs or lower GPAs.
Yeah.
Overall.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, why did you drop from a 3.9 to a 3.8? That's a downward trend.
Yeah.
All right, another Texas specialty one.
How do you recommend TMDSAS applicants write out their activity descriptions, given that there are less characters available than AMCAS?
Well, technically there are more, right? Because you have unlimited spaces.
Right.
Yeah, there's the solution. Why didn't we think about this? Scribe activity 1 of 2. Scribe activity 2 of 2. That's how we should get around this.
No.
Don't take my joke seriously, guys. Let's Scott tell us the thing.
So Scott, before you answer your thoughts, AMCAS 700 characters, AACOMAS 600 characters, TMDSAS 300 characters.
Yep. I'm gonna actually try to talk them into increasing that next year. Because it's a little ridiculous to have it that short. But basically what you have to do is you just have to very quickly say, this is what I did. And I mean, you really don't even have time to tell a story. It's so few characters. And I recommend that you don't use full sentences, that you use phrases separated by semicolons or semicolons, commas. Use punctuation to separate the thoughts, so that you could say, instead of saying, I served patients by doing blah 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 blah, just say, did served this, and then you can say, I really, I got out of it that patients aren't always happy, or whatever. So you have to really be very succinct, and I think you don't mess around with full-on sentences, because you're wasting so many characters by doing that.
It's basically the opposite of what I tell you to do for AMCAS and AACOMAS.
Yeah, essentially.
But
That's right.
That's what they force you to do. So there's nothing you can do about it.
All right.
How does the application timeline differ for AACOMAS? So it really doesn't. The application is very similar. AMCAS opened today, May 3rd. AACOMAS opens tomorrow, May 4th. The biggest difference is you don't have to wait to submit until May 27th to submit AACOMAS. You can submit it as soon as it's ready, which was the same as TMDSAS, but TMDSAS changed this year to have a slight delay for submission. Yep. Other than that, the actual application cycle timeline is a little bit different. The DO cycle tends to be a little bit longer, offering interviews a little bit later and acceptances a little bit later. My guess for that, if I were just taking a wild guess on why they do that, I think they hold some interviews for students who applied only to MD schools first, didn't get any sort of traction interview-wise, and decided to put in a late application to DO schools. But that's my hypothesis.
All right.
How long do you think med schools will take online courses? My university is still mostly online next semester, but I know some schools are going back in person.
I kind of suspect it's going to be this whole cycle for sure, and I think that a lot of medical schools are going to be accepting online. I think it may. My guess is that a lot of medical schools are going to see a lot of changes that they're going to make based on COVID things that they've done to adjust for COVID. They're going to keep with it. In other words, I see a lot of medical schools saying, okay, we saw that there were no differences in terms of online courses and stuff, so we're going to just go ahead and blanket accept them. There's going to be med schools that are going to say, hey, we're going to do all virtual interviewing, or we're going to offer the students the choice of whether they want to do it virtually or in person, or so I think there's going to be a lot of differences after this is all over. Be my guess.
Yeah, we're doing some research on this now to add to our med school database, and we're not done. So it's not all posted and mapped yet, but the early stuff we've looked at is a mix. So some schools are saying 2020 only. Some are saying as long as the pandemic is going on, which when do you define it ending? And then a few, the one I noticed that I thought was most remarkable is Hopkins is now just saying any online ever. So they didn't just say 2020. When they said the first year they said we're going to do it this year, they were like, and going back, which I think there's a lot of that's fair.
Yeah.
Right. If online's okay, then it's okay. So the short answer is it varies. You need to research. Sorry.
The silver lining from the pandemic is that it's forcing admissions committees to reevaluate things and really ask themselves the questions. Why are we requiring what we require? Why do we ask students to do the things we ask them to do? Is it just because that's always the way it's been and we continue to do it? Do we really need this? And so I'm excited to see what the future of medical school admissions is. And I hope that it becomes better and more accessible for more students.
Yeah, me too.
Yep. Agreed.
All right.
For a 34-year-old non-trad coming from a finance career and currently enrolled in a do-it-yourself postbac, how much would having zero research experience be considered a liability? My favorite.
As in none?
None. Scott, so what I've been saying a lot lately is research is the most overrated part of the application process in the pre-med world. Pre-meds are like, I didn't get in. It's because I don't have enough research. I'm like, probably not. Probably not. Yeah. Even schools, I had a conversation with UCSF. It was a couple of years ago now. They're like, the biggest thing that we want students to know is that even though we're a big, heavy research institution, that's not the only thing we look for in an application. We don't look for students who have a bunch of research.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I agree.
All right. Sorry, I was looking for someone who we haven't already answered because we're getting a lot of repeats.
Do colleges see that I took 18 plus hours every semester in undergrad, kept it a 4.0, participated in rigorous research, and then I'm graduating a semester early? So basically, do colleges know that I'm a badass?
Yeah, they do.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, they do.
Yep. They can see how many hours you took in a semester. They can see, obviously they have a 4.0. They can see you're participating in research. Now your description of it, and if you're getting a letter from it, is going to dictate how they see it as rigorous or not rigorous. And I'm not sure exactly what that means, in fact, but I think I get what you're saying. But they're going to see all of that stuff, and it will be meaningful to them.
Yeah. Hopefully there's some extracurricular activities in there as
Yes.
well, outside of research, like clinical experience and some shadowing.
Yeah. And that's a very good point, Ryan. And I think what I would say about that is I've seen these sort of fast track students who are, they're trying to graduate in 3 years, and they're doing all this stuff, and they're great students and all that, but they have no experience, no clinical experience whatsoever.
I've seen that a lot too. I'm not sure why, but oftentimes the fast track students, I guess it's like they're so well informed about so many things and somehow miss the memo in clinical.
Yeah.
Clinical matters.
Yep. Yeah.
No, it's because they think I'm a 4.0 student. I have a 518 MCAT score. I have rigorous research. I'll get into medical school. It's just like,
maybe not.
Maybe.
How many butts have you wiped?
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. I'm done with referencing bowel movements just for today.
I mean, that's like the second or third time today.
I know. I'm really on a roll. I did have some children visiting me this weekend, so like there was a lot more talk about it. But yeah, let's a friend's family. That sounded weird. Let's move on.
There you go, kids. I got some candy.
Oh God. No.
Anyway, what do schools think about criminal records, i.e. misdemeanors? How do you get accepted with these? I know of a doctor who got accepted with a DUI, so I know it's possible. Yeah,
I mean, I absolutely agree that, a lot of it's going to be timing. When was the DUI? Something as a freshman is interpreted much more differently than something that happened last week. So I think that they are going to look at that. They are going to look at, what your explanation of the event was and kind of what you're saying about it. And so, all those are going to be taken into consideration. If you have multiple things that all involve, for example, alcohol, then that's going to worry an admissions committee. So, I would be, just upfront. And say what happened, what the situation was, and then just move on.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, and some schools, right, going down to the brass tacks, some schools will automatically filter out anyone who checks to having a misdemeanor, and other schools will want to see based on their normal review process.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hi, started the application today. How would I go about listing multiple shadowing experiences, especially with the way AMCAS is formatted? Got a good book about it. The Premed Playbook Guide to the Medical School Application Process, available for pre-order.
Yes.
One more time.
Yeah. List it.
Yeah.
Just list. Dr. Smith, otolaryngology, 10 hours. Dr. Johnson, ENT, same thing, darn it. Gastroenterology, 20 hours, right? Just lists and give general time frame. And then for the contact information for the box, either the most recent person typically, or maybe the person you have the best relationship with. There's no science behind that. 99.9% chance that anyone will get called on that list.
Right.
My GPA was a 2.7 overall in undergrad due to 2 new developed illnesses and hurricanes. I now have maintained a 4.0 in a specialized graduate program. Can the higher GPA help me get into medical school?
Yep.
That's what it's for.
Yep. Absolutely.
AMCAS said it takes 25 days to process transcripts. Is there a place to check if the time gets shorter, please? No, AMCAS is horrible.
No.
Also, it's not going to get shorter. It's going to get longer.
Yeah. It's going to become 30 days and then 35 and then 40 and then 45.
Yeah, I think somewhere in the handbook, I was just rereading it. It said we expect in peak season it to be 8 weeks.
Yeah.
So the later you apply, the longer it's going to take to get yourself verified. Yeah. I mean, she specifically asked about transcripts, but yeah, the whole thing's long. All right.
And that's why we tell you to apply early, because you're just basically getting in line to have this whole verification process done. Yeah. And the later you apply, the more people are in line, the longer it takes for your application to get sent to the school. Yeah, and it's a cluster.
Yeah.
But TMDSAS, on the other hand, they got their stuff in order.
Yeah, they do.
That delay isn't there.
Nope.
AACOMAS too, right? They're pretty quick.
AACOMAS verification process is super quick. So AACOMAS is similar to AMCAS, where they verify before the schools can pull down the information. But AACOMAS, even in peak season, is like a week or less.
Yeah.
But TMDSAS is a little bit different because they don't do the verification process on the front end,
right?
Which I think is pretty smart, because it's basically like searching for a needle in a haystack when literally the haystack there's nothing wrong with. Just send them to the schools and then do all the search afterwards.
Yeah, that's what TMDSAS. That's what Texas does, and it makes so much sense. And then the schools, if they interviewed somebody and there's something wrong with their transcript, or they entered stuff in it correctly or clearly lied or something like that, then they just pull them out of the mix.
Yeah.
But you're right. Needle in the haystack is a very good metaphor there.
So rare. It's not worth the delay.
No, it's not.
All right. Let's hear from Josh Premed. I wonder if that's his last name.
It's pronounced Premed.
But what happens when he's Dr. Premed?
Oh no, I don't want him a doctor who's a pre-med.
Anyway, should a story used in a personal statement about why medicine that was during one of your activities also be one of the activities chosen as most meaningful? This is a very common question we've been getting a lot lately, is how does personal statement activities relate to activities, and does it have to be a most meaningful if I mention it here? And what if I don't have a letter of recommendation from something I mentioned in my personal statement? And she's like, wow, you guys are thinking way too hard about it.
Way overthinking it. Way overthinking it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The admissions committee is not going to get that granular with it. And, they're not going to say, wait a minute. That's just not gonna happen. So Josh, don't overthink it. Just do what you think is best, and do what you think is right and for you, and you'll be.
Yeah, and remember, it's two separate things. One is, at least my take on the personal statement, is why do you want to be a doctor? Yep. And the things that you're talking about in your personal statement are going to be most meaningful to your journey to be a doctor. Why you're continued to chase this dream. Most meaningful for AMCAS, I don't know the specific language that TMDSAS has for most meaningful, but let's say it's similar to AMCAS. Mm-hmm. Most meaningful for AMCAS doesn't mention most meaningful to your journey to be a doctor. It's just most meaningful to you as a person, as a human being in your life. You could have a hobby as a most meaningful experience. You could have a dancing ballet as a most meaningful experience, right? Things that just aren't related to medicine as most meaningful, because that is most meaningful to you as a human being.
Yep. Now, I will say, I will add to that I think if you're choosing three most meaningful situations, I would hope that one of the three has something to do with medicine, because that sends a signal to the admissions committee that, okay, what you've done in medicine, whether it's a clinical activity or whatever, is impactful to you. And that's why one of the reasons why you're going into this health, this profession, is because it's impactful. I've seen applicants before where every one of the most meaningful ones had nothing to do with anything. You know, it was like one of them was a hobby, and one of them was, you know, they were just all very random. You know, and so I would say, you know, think long and hard about what you consider to be meaningful and why you consider it to be meaningful. Choose what you want to choose, but you know, I do think that for your own sake, in terms of your own thinking about things, hopefully what is meaningful to you is what you're wanting to do in life. You know, hope that makes sense.
For people that have only eshadowing experience, how do we add this on the application? I see that they require number and email to be able to confirm your hours, but if it was online, that's not possible. So for eshadowing, I have contact information at eshadowing.com on what to put on the application for me as contact information. You list it as normal shadowing hours, and then just explain that X number of hours were e-shadowing, or all of them were e-shadowing, or virtual shadowing, whatever the language is you want to use.
Yeah, I wondered if this person used e-shadowing and wasn't referencing specifically your brand, which is part of where I put it on. So if you guys have been doing some form of web shadowing or virtual shadowing and doing it with a group that's not certifying your hours, then yeah, that's tougher. But what Ryan just said, he does allow you to have certification verification through his. And I know at least some of them do. Like I've talked to the web shadowing folks, and I know they just posted something about doing their spring verification letters. So at least some of the e-shadowing or virtual shadowing opportunities are giving you a chance to count them.
Yep. E-shadowing tonight with Dr. Judy Melanik, forensic pathologist, I think best-selling author of Working Stiff. Amazing book about her journey to be a forensic pathologist. So.
Oh, cool. She's also the keynote at the West Coast Health Professions Fair.
She is.
Oh, that's awesome.
Neat. All right. Got time for a few more.
Is it a red flag to work in a research lab for several years and have no publications to show for it? Nope. That's the joy of research. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Yeah, that's why again, research in my mind is one of the most overrated things, especially publications, because there's so much luck that comes with being able to publish research. Especially as a pre-med, you have to join the research lab at the right time that you're gathering enough data to be able to write it up into an abstract and get it approved for a publication. And just there's so many things that have to go right as a pre-med because you're coming in and out of these different situations. Yeah, it's just like, great, you have a publication. That doesn't mean you're better than someone who doesn't have a publication. It just means you timed it right. Luckily.
Yeah, that's right. And not only that you timed it right, but the timing was right for you. You had nothing to do with it. Exactly. And it was just complete luck that you happened to get into a lab at a particular time when stuff was happening in the lab, and things really, went
you
crazy.
Jumped onto that speeding train.
Yeah, exactly.
Only I made it go.
Not the 7 years of work before me.
No. Yeah. I actually had just a follow-up point to that. I had a great conversation with someone today, and she's like, well, like, how important is research? And I did this one thing where it really wasn't research. We were doing a lot of data review and trying to figure out this research that we want to do. And I said, no, that is research. Like, research is asking questions and trying to figure out what answers are already out there and what answers you're looking for and how to think about answering those questions. Like when you're doing the lit review about what's out there already and you're trying to think about how you want to set up your study, like that is research. And so many people just think research is like micropipette. And it's just, yeah. So anyway, I have lots of thoughts on research. You can tell.
Apparently.
All right.
Sorry, this is a duplicate, but I just saw that it is safest to use YouTube. Okay.
Oh, that was a Facebook poster. We're not getting the private Facebook group comments.
Oh.
That's
Is it okay to take the MCAT without Physics 2 and concurrently taking Biochem if I am using Blueprint Prep? Rachel?
Is it okay? It is okay. It is not ideal, right? So a lot of times in the world of MCAT prep and admissions, we like to talk about, optimal versus acceptable versus not acceptable. Optimal would be having biochem under your belt. I'm not as worried about physics too. I mean, I know physics can be a real challenge for some people, but there are only maybe like 5 or 7 topics from physics 2 that are going to come up on the MCAT, and physics is usually a relatively small percentage of the MCAT. One challenge here is that all MCAT forms are different, so you never know. You could end up with a physics-heavy day. And again, all MCAT forms are different, but biochem can show up in the bio section. It also shows up in Chem Phys because the full name of that section is Chemical and Physical Foundations of Biological Systems. And it can show up in Psych Soc. It's pretty small, but 5% of the Psych Soc section could be the neuroscience. So you're getting some biochem there. So if you don't have one semester of biochem and have a really, really solid foundation, it could impact your content knowledge in 3 sections. So all that to say, if now is the right time and you need to take the MCAT prep now and you don't have biochem yet, it's going to be okay. You're going to have to work a lot harder to be sure you've mastered the biochem, because MCAT prep assumes you're reviewing and you're going to be learning it cold. Hope that helps.
Yeah.
Should we? Oh, yeah, we got room for one more, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Is it bad if majority of your clinical experience comes from caring for a family member? My answer is yes.
Yeah, I would say I agree with that. I think that if the majority of it, because caring for a family member is very different than caring from a random person.
Yeah.
And I think, you need to recognize that there are biases built into family members, both positive and negative. And that's not what you're going to find when you are caring for patients in the real world. And so I would say, yeah, you need to get some experience with in other areas.
Yeah. Does that mean a student who has, let's say, 500 hours of caring for a family member, just because those hours add up quickly, potentially, does that mean they should wait to apply to medical school until they have more than 500 hours caring for that family member? Or should they just get a good chunk of hours?
Yeah, I would.
Of that?
Yeah, I agree with that. What you just said, Ryan. I would say in the process of doing that, and recognize that this is a weakness of your application, and really work on that, and pointedly work on that, intentionally work on that particular area of your application, and recognize if you're in the midst of the application cycle, that if you had to reapply, that may have been one of the chief reasons why you might have to reapply, and that during your application year, you want to be working on expanding that clinical activities, those lists of clinical activities, so that in that next application year, you're in a much better position.
Yeah.
If it became necessary.
Yeah. Yeah. So potentially still the majority of hours, but at least they are working on that experience.
Yeah, maybe you're working on what you're working on is the percentage of the hours. You're making the percentage of the hours that were for the family member smaller as you go along and pull in more other activities. Yep.
Carson is sad because we didn't answer any of his questions. So I was looking through his questions, and let's try to answer one. One of them.
I was looking. I couldn't find any Carson questions.
Yeah, they're here.
Okay, here's one.
We love you, Carson.
Here's one. How does it look if you take extra semesters to graduate?
Well, coming from someone who was on the 5-year plan myself,
that explains a lot now.
Yeah, right. Yeah. No, I don't think it's a problem. I there's a lot of reasons why people take extra semesters. Yep. They're working, or there's an interruption of some type because of illness or family. Double majoring. There could be a lot of reasons for that, and so I don't think that again, I don't think that medical schools are looking that granularly at an application and saying, well, this person took an extra 3 semesters and I'm wondering why. And so, yeah, I wouldn't worry about it.
I wouldn't. So for all of you who asked questions that we didn't get to, that doesn't mean that they weren't important or anything else. Just means we picked the questions that we picked and we didn't pick yours. But we do have a lot of content. The Ask the Dean that we're doing live today, we have 30 or 40 of them actually published on YouTube already. Those are mostly the private ones that we do for our Mapped members. Mm-hmm. So go listen, go watch. It's in podcast form as well. If you want to just follow in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever, and you can listen to us drone on and on about how lovely the pre-med process is. So
cool.
Right. Yeah, and I'll add to that. So with the Ask the Deans, if you search in Google, it'll give you timestamps. So you can always jump right to the specific question. And then, I think Ryan said this at the beginning of the session. If you join Mapped, you can come to Ask the Dean every week. We do them public once a month, but Mapped members get them every single week. So come hang out with us.
Yeah,
hang out. And Mapped again, leaving beta tomorrow. Go to mapped.com today. Sign up to get our beta prices locked in.
Yeah.
Have a great night, everyone.
Bye, everybody.